again, thank you so much for being here. So let's start with, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got it started?
Yeah, so my name is ladidai, but everyone calls me Lottie for short. I am from Yonkers, New York, and I now live in LA. I do music. I'm an artist. I'm a songwriter. I have always loved to do music, but I didn't really make the leap until the end of 2018 when I left my job in New York and moved across the country to Los Angeles. And I've been, doing my thing out here ever since.
That's awesome. So did you come straight out of like school to go to New York or to go to LA, or how did you get to LA? When did you get to LA?
Yeah, so I graduated from college and then I got a job just like most people do. And I was working at that job and I was like, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's like I had, a nice office job in Midtown New York. So it's like I was doing okay, but I was just like, I'm not passionate about what I'm doing. And so that's kind of when I was like, I need to make the switch. I attended ASCAP Expo in May of that year in 2018, and making that trip out to LA just for like a week or two, I was like, yeah, I gotta be out here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that feeling. So can you
Yeah.
explain what a songwriter does, who they work with, and how a song like comes together?
So the job of a songwriter is to write a song, but really to, I would say, like complete a song. So essentially, they're aiding the artist in creating whatever it is that they have in mind to kind of fulfill their vision. And it happens a bunch of different ways. I mean, usually it's like linking up in a studio. That's my favorite way to do it. Obviously, like with COVID and also just the people kind of like working all over the world, it's like it can happen virtually. I did a lot of virtual sessions through Zoom. And usually it could happen a bunch of ways, right? So it's like you'll have a producer there and they'll like maybe start something from scratch, or maybe they'll have like a beat ready or a loop ready, or sometimes the artist will come in with like an idea or even like a started song already. So it's like it's a bunch of different kind of like starting points and methods, but at the end of the day, it's to make sure that at the end of the session, hopefully, there's a song that's completed and it's a song that the artist loves.
Yeah. So I've heard of songwriting camps. Have you ever been
Mm-hmm.
to one?
Yeah, I've been to a few. Those are really fun. Just shout out to all the artists that have ever invited me to those. And essentially, it's like a bunch of different people are there, and they're, again, the goal is just to create songs, really. So it's like there usually be a couple of rooms going at the same time. And then the artists will be kind of like coming in and out of the rooms to kind of see what's going on. But one of the main things I learned from camps is that you definitely want to have the artist in the room,
Mm.
just because it's like it's more likely they're gonna have like an affinity for that song if they're like a part of it, and they kind of can give you like pointers on what they like and don't like, because you're for the most part like shooting in the dark if you don't get a chance to kind of get have them have a feel for whatever you're making. So
Yeah. So, um, my with my little time in the music industry, I've come to the conclusion that relationship building is so important.
mm-hmm.
So, with these songwriting camps, are they like an exclusive ordeal, or can anyone just go into a camp?
It depends on the kind of camp. So, for instance, like I actually ran my first camp. It was virtual one in the pandemic last year in March with Hard Drive. Shout out to Nikki Shiloh. So that was a camp that was kind of open to anyone who wanted to apply, and then we kind of narrowed it down to whoever we thought were the best ones for that. And then we ended up releasing a project called Girl Talk. It was like a woman kind of like focused camp. So that's one way you could do it. The other camps I've been a part of have been like invite only. So it's like either like someone in the artist team reaches out to me or reaches out to someone I know and they're like, oh, they need a songwriter. Do you want to be a part of this? And I'll be like, yeah. So that's usually how it's really just through relationships, like all things.
Yeah. And with those, how do you divide the credit up with the credits for the songwriters and producers?
It depends. I personally love doing things like Nashville style, so it's like the same across the board for everyone. But depending on who you're working with, it happens different ways. I mean, I'm personally not super picky on splits. I just, try to have it done easily and fairly.
Mm,
Sometimes there's like a lot of like nitpickiness down to like percentages, and I'm not really about that. It just
yeah.
comes down to whatever is like discussed and agreed upon.
Cool, cool, cool. So, what are your steps in songwriting? What's your process like?
Well, so if I'm working by myself, usually I'll have like a beat. I will put it into Pro Tools. I'll just like kind of freestyle some like, melodies or cadences or lyrics, whatever. And then I might do that like 1 to 2 times. I'll like go through and structure the beat. Then I go through and pick the pieces I like that go for each part. So I'm like, okay, this sounds like a hook. This sounds like a verse. This sounds like a pre. I'll put it all together, see how it sounds, and then from there I'll like write it. So when I write by myself, it's actually pretty quick. I could probably do a song in like maybe 30 minutes if I'm really
Oh, wow.
focused. So yeah, it doesn't take long to like. I mean, to get the final recording it might take a little longer, but just to get like a rough demo, it's pretty fast.
That's so cool. I heard you
Yeah.
mention Pro Tools. Do you do like producing? Do you do anything other than songwriting?
I produce a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a producer just because a lot of what I do is using loops. So I'll like grab something from Splice and then I'll put it in Logic and then I'll just throw some, you know, drums on there. So it's like I'll sequence stuff and I'll transpose stuff, but I don't necessarily make stuff from scratch because it's not like my forte. I like working with producers who've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
But I do, record and like mix a little bit just for the sake of like getting the song done, doing the demo. So it's like usually if you're a songwriter, you're not just writing. You got to have a couple other skills, or else you can't
Yeah.
finish the song.
Yeah, I was about to ask, do you think that like creatives in the music industry should have other skills? But kind of into that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt. Like the more you can learn, the better. And obviously, it's easiest if you start like early. So people who start when they're like kids,
Mm,
they've got the game figured out, right? Because it's like the younger you start, the more you can like learn along the way. It gets a little tougher, I think, when you're like an adult because you gotta like work and stuff. But
mm.
I think it helps to like learn to get like really, really good at one thing and then like maybe a little proficient at a couple other things. So if you're a songwriter, you want to know how to record. You want to know how to like mix. Maybe you sing too, or you rap. So you want to like get good at that. If you want to, you can get good at production. But I think like at the bare minimum, be able to use like Splice to like make a beat. It's not like you have to make it from scratch. So it definitely does help. And it's like nowadays where people can kind of do everything on their own if they wanted to. You're definitely more of an asset if you develop a few more skills.
Definitely, definitely. That's really good to know for me specifically. So, how do you find artists to work with or to write songs for?
um, a lot of it comes through word of mouth.
Hmm.
So I've been fortunate at that. It's like a lot of my clients will like refer me to other people. Sometimes it's just like social media. Like I've had people reach out to me on Instagram a lot, Twitter. I also have a newsletter, so sometimes people reach out to me through that. So it's a bunch of different ways. But people just going out. Like before COVID, I would just go to events, a lot of events. There's a lot of stuff happening in LA, and you just meet people. So it's really organic.
Oh, good, good, good. Um, I saw your newsletter before. I think I saw it on LinkedIn. You had posted about
Mm,
it.
yeah.
It's fairly recent, right? You started it fairly recently.
I launched it in the beginning of this year. So yeah, it's newer. And then I kind of sometimes take little breaks from it depending. But I relaunched it earlier this month, a few days ago, 15th. So
Hmm.
it goes out every month on 15th.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so essentially the newsletter entails obviously like updates on me and in my life, but mostly it's about just kind of providing like resources for upcoming creatives and upcoming executives in the music industry. So essentially like any kind of like grants or scholarships, job opportunities, internship opportunities, just things like that I think could be helpful for people who are kind of like on their way. And this is just based off of like things I've looked up for my own self. So I'm like, okay, like one of the things that helped me, for instance, especially like early on during the pandemic when I got laid off, was grants. So they had grants for artists who, you know, were undergoing some sort of like stress, I guess you could say, financial or economic stress due to the pandemic. So it's like, oh, you can apply for this. And it's like, I was able to get thousands of dollars worth of grants, and that helped a lot with like paying my rent and doing other things. So I was like, oh, maybe I could like share this with people and it could help them. And so I had some friends who were like, hey, that grant you told me about, I got it. And I was like, oh, yay. So I was like, okay, I'll just make it like a thing. So then I just launched like a newsletter, and then I've gotten good feedback from it. So
Good. That goes back to saying that as creatives, we can be more than like one thing. This kind of sounds entrepreneurial-ish and mentor-ish in a way, like a business person. So you're a songwriter person.
Oh yeah, you gotta. It's so funny because I feel like when you're a creative, if you're smart, you can't just be a creative, right? Like you gotta know some kind of business, and you know, ideally the music business, like publishing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But beyond that, yeah, I think it's you know, I'm someone who, like I said, like I started out working like in offices and stuff, so it's like I already kind of had that sort of experience, and so that I was able to kind of translate that to other things I do now. But yeah, for sure, it's like by default, if you're a creative, you're an entrepreneur in one respect or another. So yeah,
That's awesome. Multifaceted queens.
yeah. Thanks.
So, do you have any mentors, or did you have any mentors that helped you in the music industry, or like specifically songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a couple. Like one of my first mentors, who I still work with through this nonprofit called Gender Amplified, was Ebony Smith, and she's someone who's an engineer at Atlantic Records, and she's really, really dope. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't know if I necessarily had mentors like traditionally. Like it wasn't like I had somebody that I was like checking in with like every week. But I've definitely had people like along the way that have been like inspiring to me or have been helpful to me. And it was actually Ebony who had gotten me into the last writing camp that I did in Atlanta. So, you know, she holds it down wherever she can. And then of course, Mickey Silo at Hard Drive, who's really amazing. She's someone who opened my eyes a lot in terms of like approaching music from like a different perspective, like from the tech side, but also from like the entrepreneurial side. So it's really dope what she's doing over there, and I really respect her and learn a lot from her. And then I also had the chance to have, I guess, a more traditional mentor through this organization called AIMP, and essentially they have different types of programs for artists and executives and different types of creatives in the music industry, but they had like a mentorship program, like a formal one. So I was like, oh, let me try that out because I haven't had like a formal mentor before. And then I met a woman named Jane Bushmaker, and she works more on like the legal side of music, like in auditing. And it was really cool getting to know her and just kind of learning that perspective of things. So I've definitely met people along the way in like various parts of the music industry, and I've been super grateful for that.
That's awesome. I did hear that you were in New York, and then you were in LA, and then you went to Atlanta for a songwriting camp. So has music taken you like all over the US, or has it had you travel to places, I guess?
It's taken me to, well, yeah, so I started out in New York, so that's kind of where everything began. And then I would travel to LA and Atlanta to just get the experience to other places. Because I remember I was at this iStandard beat camp in 2017, and there was a woman there named Dove, and she was saying, one of the issues with New Yorkers is that they think they don't have to go anywhere else in the world. And I'm like, we don't. We got everything right here. New York is the best city in the world. But I took that as a challenge. I was like, okay, cool. I want to see what's popping in other music cities. And she had mentioned, you know, A3C in Atlanta and ASCAP Expo in LA. So I was like, I'm gonna go to both. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to both, and I was like, ah, I love it. I love these cities. I love the culture. I love what's happening. Like every time I go to Atlanta, I'm like, I want to move there. It's a really dope city, and just like the energy there is amazing. So it's taking me to those places. I wouldn't say it's really taking me much else, but that's just because like those are like the major, you know, music cities. And I think I also would love to swing by Nashville too, because that's a big, you know, they say Nashville is like the songwriting capital of the world. So
Mm.
definitely want to check out what's going on there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do recommend if you go to Tennessee, stop by the African American Music History Museum.
Oh, cool,
Worth
cool.
it. It's amazing.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. I'll keep that in mind for sure.
Of course, of course. So, what type of songs do you write? Do you have any specific types or all of
I mean, it just depends. Like if when it comes to songwriting, I just write songs. So I'll write anything.
them?
I've written EDM, I've written Latin music, pop, R&B, hip hop, Afrobeat. I'll write anything because it's just the job is to write a song. So it's like I don't limit it to genre or anything because like why, you know?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
need me to write the song, I write the song. Like when I work on my own stuff though, it's more I guess you could say like contemporary. Like I'm very into like pop, hip hop, R&B, Afrobeat too, because I'm Nigerian. So it's like it's a fusion of things. Definitely, I'm very big on that. So it's more like mainstream, like top 40 type vibes. But that's what I like.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. I heard what did I hear? I heard Latin music. So do you speak Spanish or do you mean the bees?
Un poquito. You know, I mean, I
Oh,
live in New York, so there's a lot of like Dominicans and Puerto Ricans
mhm.
and stuff. So it's like I'm not fluent, but if I work with somebody who speaks it, then I can write a song with them. You know, I'll probably help more with like the melody and the structure and the concept. But when
Mhm.
it comes to like the actual like you know words, you got to make sure the grammar is right. So you need somebody who's like fluent in that.
Mm. Yeah, so there's
Co-writing means
there.
if you
Yeah.
co-write well enough, you could do anything. You can
Oh,
work
yeah.
any, you know. So it's like I don't necessarily do it all by myself, but if I have like a co-writer that's good at that, then I just link with them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
So do you work for a company or are you freelance?
I'm freelance. Yeah, freelance life since May last year, something like that. No, actually, no. Did I start? No, I didn't start freelancing for real until like the end of last year
Mm.
because I was like, oh, I really need to get some money.
I get what you mean.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was it's been an interesting venture. I've definitely learned a lot. I'm not sure if I necessarily love it because it's a lot
Mm.
of like chasing after people with like invoices and stuff, but it's cool like having your own hours, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Have you worked for a company before in songwriting?
um,
Music.
Not really. Like I'm still affiliated with Hard Drive, but I don't necessarily like work for them. It's more
Mm.
like independent contractor work. So
Okay.
that's the most I've done. Like songwriting is interesting because you aren't necessarily ever going to be like an employee unless you work for like a sync house or something like that. But
Mm.
um, yeah, it's for the most part you're just like floating around doing your own thing unless you're signed, right? Like people who are signed, like it's a whole other ball game.
Okay. So there are no like songwriters specifically for record labels, right?
Well, so if you're signed, like you'll have a deal with like a publisher,
Okay.
and then those people generally have more access to working with artists that are signed to a label.
Mm.
Sometimes they themselves are also signed to a label. So that's kind of like how you're more officially involved in things, you know, if you have like a pub deal. But if you don't, then you're kind of just freelancing and figuring it out.
All right. I got you. I got you. I got you. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think I have about 3 or 4 more questions left for you, and then
Yeah.
we finished. So, do you work in any other sides of music other than songwriting? I know you mentioned like a little bit of production for yourself, but anything?
I mean, sometimes I do like consulting just for like up and coming creatives mostly.
Mm.
That's just like my like side thing, freelance stuff. That's mostly it. Yeah. I just try to stick to what I know. I try not to spread myself too thin.
Gotcha.
I do like record people sometimes, but I don't do that often. That was just like a thing I would do during the pandemic, like virtual recording. But
Virtual
it's not.
recording.
Yeah, it's like through
Oh.
Zoom. I use Zoom. I use like this plugin called Audio Movers or Listen To, so that way you can like hear people. But I don't do that very much. I don't really like to do it. So
Do what you love. Yes.
yeah.
So, what has been one of your favorite projects you've worked on so far?
I've worked on a bunch of different things, but it's funny because some stuff I can't say because it's not out. They're not out yet. But
Yeah, that's
I
a
will,
thing that's gonna happen to me.
I will say, like, the one project that I love working on was the one that came out of the writing camp, the virtual writing camp I did with Hard Drive. So that project is an EP called Girl Talk. So I
Mhm.
listened to it. It's under Mickey Shiloh's name on every DSP. And that was cool because that was like a collaborative effort with my girlfriends. I'm part of this like collective called ILL, standing for Isadore, Luna, Ladi, which is me.
Oh,
And so we decided to partner with Hard Drive to host a writing camp. And it was during like Women's History Month. It was really, really cool. It's like a bunch of dope like artists came together and producers to like make this project happen. So that was a fun one, and there's some good songs on there. So actually, one of the songs that was a single, "Glazed" by Maya, but the music video just dropped, so make sure you guys check that out. It's really good.
definitely. Definitely. So you mentioned that you're part of this, so ill,
Mm-hmm.
IL.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a common thing for artists to form like or and songwriters to form groups like that?
I feel like at this point it's almost essential to be
Mm.
in a collective. I really do think collectives win. I look at the artists that I see kind of that have come up or that are coming up,
Mm.
and I really do feel like being a part of something like helped. Even like groups, like you look at groups like Wu-Tang, it's like that. I consider that a collective. Odd Future, another collective. Uh, Brockhampton, I guess that's like a group, but I consider that a collective too. Especially when people do like different things. So it's like, for instance, like Jack Harlow, he's got his own collective called Private Garden, and it's like there's rappers in there, and there's like a photographer, and there's like a director, and it's like when people do different things, then it just like you have like your own like self-sustaining like ecosystem, and I think things like that are super super important. Like that's how you build your team. And
Yeah.
that's how you find people who are like invested in you early on before you can like really like pay them or anything. People are doing it based off like the passion. So I think collectives are the way to go.
I think that is so innovative. That is so cool. I love it. So, what is something that you hope to achieve in the future within the music industry?
Oh, it's a long list, honey. I got like I have like my manifestations or affirmations list that I do like every day, and it's like all the things that I'm gonna accomplish, and it's like
Love that.
become best friends with Beyonce,
Yes, number one.
Rihanna, Doja Cat, number one. Yeah, I mean, I want to work with like a bunch of dope people. I want to obviously perform at the VMAs and at the Billboard, Music Awards and at the Grammys and win a Grammy. And, I really feel like music is going to take me everywhere. And so I want to go as far as I can go with it and then, expand my empire from there. I look at, like I said, Rihanna, she's a big inspiration for me. And I'm like, she's really a Renaissance woman. Like she does it all. Like she started out in music and then she excelled in that and she did everything she could have done to accomplish whatever she needed to in that. And then she moved into like makeup and fashion and lingerie. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, that's
Yes,
what I want.
yes, yes. We love it. We love it.
Yeah, we do.
So I have one last question for you.
Hmm.
Do you have any advice for aspiring songwriters and industry pros?
Well, first
Mm.
off, subscribe to my newsletter
Yes,
because it'll have a lot
essential.
of things to help you in there. And then follow me on all socials.
Yeah,
Mostly like Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, but LinkedIn too. Hit me on LinkedIn. But I think for me, the number one thing is just knowing that you really are more in control of your life than you think. And basically, anything that you want to achieve for yourself, you can do it if you put your mind to it. And the only thing that's going to ever stop you from anything is you. And the only way that you're ever going to fail in music is if you stop. If you just need to keep going. All right. If you keep going, it's a numbers game. I think people got to look at everything in life as probability, right? It's like the more you put out songs, the more likely one of them is going to pop off. The more you create music, the more likely the better it is you're going to get at it. The more that you network, the more likely that you're going to meet somebody that's going to change your life. So you just got to be consistent in doing those things and just believe that it's going to happen because it will.
definitely. I feel like the songwriter in you just came out at me because bars, really good, really good.
I got a few.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm
I
gonna
appreciate you, Jordan.